Hey guys, we are going to do a little work on budgeting today. So the two main ideas in math that we have to use is finding a percent and finding a dollar amount given a percent. So we're going to work on those for a little bit, and then we're going to see some real world examples with someone named Deandre, and we're going to take a look at his finances and his budget. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is find the percent of something. So that means, let's say you have $200 and you spend $20, what percent did you spend? Or if you pay someone $5 and you had $15, what percent did you pay them? So we're finding percent. So let me get one of my colors ready. If I want the percent amount, what I need is what you paid over the total. So paid over total. So let's think of just an example so we can have some numbers. Let's say you made $250 this week. And let's say you had to pay your employer, whoever that may be, let's say you had to pay them $7. We take the amount you paid, divided by how much you had total, and that's going to give us a decimal. So let's do that real quick. Let's do 7 divided by 250, and that's going to give me 0.028. Now that's not a decimal yet, or I'm sorry, it's not a percent yet. We have a decimal. In order to make a decimal percent, we have to take our decimal point, and we're going to move it over 2 places. So my final answer is 2.8%. So $7 is 2.8% of $250. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll move on to finding dollar amounts. So let's say you guys made $1,500 this week, so making more money. And you have to pay your parents, let's say you're a young person, and you're living with your parents, you have to pay them $75 a week, maybe to live there, maybe for expenses, whatever it may be. So we're going to find out what percent is 75 of 1,500. So I'm going to divide that. So 75, oops, sorry guys, divided by 1,500, phone dropped. And that's going to be 0.05. Again, we need to make this a percent. So we're going to take that decimal and move it over twice. So that's where it is now. And so that means this percent is 5%. All right, so we'll do a little more practice with that once we get to our actual real world example. But second, I want to show you guys how to find a dollar amount given a percent. So this time, I'm going to give you some dollar amount, and the percent, you're going to find out what the new dollar amount is. So we're going to take whatever dollar amount is, we'll say maybe the old amount, and we're going to multiply it by the percent as a decimal. Whenever we do operations with percents, we're going to use them as decimals, okay? So we got to practice making them decimals. So what I'm going to do for a couple examples, let's say we have $500. And I ask you, what is 20%? So I want to know if I had $500 and maybe you had to pay someone 20% of that, or maybe something cost 20% of that, what is 20%? So we're going to take the old amount, 500, and we're going to multiply it by 20%, but as a decimal. So let's practice making this a decimal first. So remember, our decimal's right here after the number. And now we're going to go backwards. 1, 2. So what I'm multiplying by is 0.20. You can put a 0 in front of it if you want. Okay? So if I multiply these, so in my calculator, 500 times 0.20, that's going to give me $100. So I know that 20% of 500 is $100. Let's try one more. This time I'm going to do a percent that is more than 1. So let's say you have $250 and I want to know, let's say the price of something increased. we're going to say it increased by 150%. So I'm going to ask, what is 150% of 250? So that means, well, think about 100% is just the full amount plus another 50%. So let's find out what that is. So again, let's find out what the decimal is. Start here at the end of the number. 1, 2. So this decimal is 1.50. And don't forget, we're going to do 250 times the percent as a decimal. And let's find out what that number is. So we're doing 250 times 1.5, and that's $375. And that makes sense because $375 is more than 250. It's 250 plus another 50% of that. So yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's move on to our real world example now. We are working with someone named Deandre, and he has a budget, an income, taxes, so we'll find out what all these amounts are based off the math we just did. Okay, so Deandre makes $65,000 a year, but we haven't taken taxes out yet because we can't get around taxes. So what we're going to do is find out how much do we pay in taxes. So we're going to find 28% of 65,000, right? So I'm going to write my work in here. So we're finding, change my color. We're going to find 28% of 65,000. So this is 65,000 times 0.28. Remember to make it a decimal. And that's going to give us our answer. So if I multiply that, that's going to give me 18,200. So this guy pays $18,000 in taxes. That's a lot. All right, then we're finding our net income. All that means is the money you make minus the taxes. So this is 65,000 minus 18,200. And this is basically what you actually get to bring home. And that's 46,800. Let me box that a little so it's easier to see. All right, and then last thing we're going to do up at this top part is find the monthly income. So if I know what I make a year, 46,800, then to find monthly income, you just divide by 12. So yearly divide by 12, and this person is going to bring home $3,900 a month. So this is the money that this person gets to work with each month. Now, when Deandre was budgeting, he decided that he wanted to spend these percents on each one of these topics or pieces of his budget. So when you budget, you might think, okay, I want to spend about a third or a little less than a third of my income on housing. That's probably like rent. Groceries, obviously you have to eat, 20%. Transportation, maybe he rides the bus, maybe he takes the BART, who knows. So what happens is, when you budget, well, you plan for certain amounts, but then things happen and there are the actual amounts you spend. So what we're going to do is take the actual amounts that he spent and find out what percent they really were of his monthly income, okay? So first one is 1,200. So I want to know what percent is that of 3,900. That's going back to this work we did right here. We're going to find what percent it is. So he paid 1,200. We're going to divide that by 3,900, and that gives me 31%. I made sure to change my answer to a percent. Next one, groceries. If he spends $950, again, divide it by the total, and that will give me 24%. He planned on spending 20%, so he spent a little more on groceries than he planned. Transportation, $490 divided by 3,900, that gives me 13%. Debt, he's going to end up paying 15%. Church, he spent 10%. And savings ended up being 7%. Now, think about totals and percents. If this is all of his budget, then if he spends all of this, these percents should add up to 100. So make sure you check that work and make sure your whole budget adds up to 100. It does, so we are good on these percents. All right. Last thing we're going to do before we answer some questions about his budget is decide, okay, he actually spent this amount. He planned to spend this amount. We'll fill those in a moment. And then we're going to decide what the difference is. So projected. We are going to now find dollar amounts. So now this is doing this work in green. Okay. Let's start with housing. So housing, he planned to spend 30% of $3,900. So in your calculator, you would do 3,900 times 0.3. Okay, so let's do that. And that gives us 1,170. So the difference is $30. Okay, the next one, groceries. He planned to spend 20%. So 20% of 3,900 is going to be 780. So he planned to spend 780. He actually spent 950. So the difference here is $170 more than what he planned. Next one, transportation. If he wants to spend 15%, that's going to be $585. So he actually spent less than what he planned on this one. So that's a good thing. So the difference is $95. And we're going to say, I'm going to put little arrows just so we can see this was over the budget, over, and this one's under. Okay, debt, he planned to spend 15%, and he actually did. So we're just going to write that same amount, $585. So there's zero difference there. Church, he planned to spend 10%, and that's actually what he spent. So again, we get to write the same amount, $390, zero difference. And then savings, he planned to spend 10%, and if we find 10%, that's $390. And so he was under budget by $105. And that's not a good thing. You want to put as much into savings as you can. Okay, so let's answer these last questions. It says, how well is Deandre adhering to his budget? Are there any significant differences? So I'm not going to write the answers, but I'll just talk about them. Deandre did pretty well. These amounts are not too much off the mark, but I will say that he should definitely be saving more money, and the amount that he spent over in groceries is almost the amount that he went under in savings. So I would say Deandre maybe needs to find a cheaper place to buy groceries if possible. Sometimes it's not. And then it says Deandre wants to save more money for his college education, or his children's college education. What would you suggest he trim from his spending? That's really an opinion answer. It's up to you. Everyone's budget is different. You have priorities that are different than other people. Personally, I would say that he needs to find a cheaper grocery store if possible, again, but that answer is up to you, whatever you guys would think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck on your work with your budgets.